So, after 2 weeks of using the Takstar HF580, I can safely say they're well worth the money, and they're a strong contender for the highest value planar magnetic headphone on the market right now. The HF580 is a headphone that almost anyone can appreciate. Before I virtually service these headphones on camera for the next 10 to 20 minutes, I'm going to be pretty forthright about the things I don't like about them. First, the cable, which I covered in the last video a little bit. Second, the sound signature. It's not for everyone. And third, the availability. Right now it's only available on from Takstar directly through AliExpress. I don't know if they're coming to the US via US retailer, but we'll see. And that's pretty much it. I'm a pretty picky person, but despite their flaws, I'm really enjoying them. They found a pretty solid place in my collection. So for the sound, these sound similar to the Sendy Aiva. I'm going to stress the word similar. While they may use the same driver, and it's not really clear if they do or not, but they look damn similar. The Sendy has some sort of magical tuning that brings out the detail. Both have the same recessed mid-range, relatively flat, and smooth low bass to upper bass, and detailed treble. I'm going to pull up the, adjust my camera so you can see my frequency response graph here. So the yellow is the Takstar with the cloth pads, and the red is the Sendy, and all of these will be in the description below. So I'm not an expert at reading or interpreting frequency response graphs, so I'll let you make your own conclusions as far as that goes. But at least I do have some measurements to share, and these are my own measurements. I have to give a special thank you to DMS for helping me set up the measurement rig and measuring these headphones. He's an all-around awesome guy, and he has a great YouTube channel. I can't recommend enough. Linked in the description below is going to be his channel, as well as a few other YouTubers' channels, and the headphone measurements that I have. I have measurements for the cloth pads, the leather pads, the Shure pads on these, and the Sendy Aiva as well, just for comparison. So the HF580 sound like the Sendy Aiva, just a bit softer. They don't penetrate your ears with the detail like the Sendys do. The detail's there when you want and expect it. It's just about 10 to 15% more relaxed. I can listen to these for much longer at higher volumes than I can the Aiva. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy these when they're loud. It's just kind of like, whoa, all the details there, and it's just very in your face. These are not as in your face, but they still sound really good. Overall, I think they're really fun, and they're great for a variety of genres and music types, especially electronic music and string instruments, and things that are focused around that. Vocals on both of these are kind of in that mid-range recession that you see on both of them, so they sound good, but they're not as forward as you might expect or might be used to compared to other headphones. The soundstage isn't particularly wide, but it isn't on either. But the imaging is laser sharp. They're very, very good. They make great gaming headphones, and as you can see on this side, I already have a mod mic mount. So I've been using these quite a bit for gaming, and they're fantastic. I'm convinced that part of the sound difference between the two is due to the pads. I mean, look at these pads. The wood cups and sort of the artisan style construction and attention to detail that the Aivas have compared to the almost industrial construction of the Takstar. I mean, hell, the difference could even partially be due to the cable. You know, you've seen the crazy cable the Sendys come with, but who knows? Maybe it's a combination of all of that. But it's really not that important. If you have Sendys, I'm not saying sell them and just pick up the 580 for a quarter of the price instead. I'm definitely not going to. But if you like the idea of the Sendy Aiva and you don't own a pair, you can't afford a pair, um, and you're trying to get into high value hi-fi, these are it. This is a good choice. Hopefully that's covered enough of the sound and the way they sound. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. I can't cover everything in one video, but um, overall, I like them. I don't have any serious complaints as to the way they sound. Again, if you like these and the way that these sound, you will like these. So, next we're on to modding. These seem to be really open to the prospect of modification. The two included pairs of pads are easy to swap. Here's the other set of pads. They're a perforated, fenestrated leather, or probably pleather. I doubt they're real leather. They're not glued to the mounting rings, which is very important. Both sets of pads come with the mounting rings pre-installed, but they're easily removed. So you can take these mounting rings out and put them in these Shure 1540 pads, for example. Brainwave's HM5 oval pads are the right size, but the skirting is a little bit too large for the mounting ring. So you can just modify them with a pair of scissors, and then you're good to go. Shure 1540 pads, like I mentioned, will fit without modification. The skirting is just about the right size, and they sound really good too. These are a little bit thicker. Let me hold these at the same. They're a little bit thicker, the ear hole's a little bit bigger, and I think they're a good fit. Let's see, where did I leave off? Oh, the 1540 pads actually boost the low end through the mid-range about 1 to 2 dB all the way about to 900 hertz. So that's something to consider as well if you like a little bit more of a low-end punch. These are a good option. A few enterprising users on the Head5 forums, a lovely place if you haven't been there, check it out, are already modifying these to try to get the frequency response that they want and expect out of them. They're doing this with tape, foam, even small magnets, trying to smooth out the peaks and lulls, especially in the mid-range, where these have some sort of ringing around 890 hertz, and that could be due to over-tightened screws, allegedly. I haven't messed around with that. I'm not a modder myself, and besides that, I'm going to send these out for review, so I'm not really going to do anything to them that is too wild. So check out that thread if you're interested in those sort of things. One last thing about modding, it's much easier to mod when you have a canvas that's easy to work with. Nothing on this headphone is glued or otherwise hard to remove. As you can see, most of the attachments are via like Phillips head screws, and they're just easy to take apart. So that's something to consider as well. Whereas if you look at these, there's no Phillips head screws or anything here, and they're hand constructed. I really wouldn't take these apart because you might get yourself into a little bit of trouble. Not to mention that these are less than $200, so it kind of reduces the pressure of making a modding mistake or permanent damage. It's not as big of a deal versus these, which are $600 plus tax, so just something to consider. I'm going to bitch about the cable for a minute or so. Takstar really needs to do something about this cable. I didn't think it was that big of a deal when I first got it, but it's kind of more of a bigger deal than I thought. The material and construction is fine for a stock cable. That is not my issue with it. My issue is that it's just simply way too long and to be permanently attached. I don't actually mind if the cable's this long if you can pull it off. That way I can replace it with an aftermarket cable and get a shorter one. But I've already rolled over this cable twice with my chair, and if I damage this cable, I'm kind of SOL because it's permanently attached. So it's just something to consider, and it doesn't really allow you the chance to make these portable, even though they would be decent as a portable set. So now I just kind of have to be really, really careful. And yeah, it's just something to consider. So another comparison that I think is valid and maybe a more apt comparison is the Sennheiser 580X. They're similar on paper. They're probably a more realistic comparison than the Aiva. Both of these are not exactly easy to drive, but they're not really hard either. Both sound good in a variety of situations with various amps. Both are about $160. Both have a smaller soundstage and great imaging. And both are comfortable, oval-shaped, open-back headphones. They kind of have a similar design language too. Of course, the sound signatures are very different, and part of which can be attributed to the differences between dynamic and planar drivers, but neither headphone really steps on the other's toes, despite the similarities between the two. The HF580, being planar, functions best on solid-state amps like the THX789, the JDS Atom, which I used to have and was quote stolen by a friend of mine who's quite enjoying it. And the 58X really shines. I mean, it does fine on solid states, but it really shines on tubes like the Loxg P20, the FX Audio P1, Little Dot Mark III, or Dark Voice, just to name a few. So if you like the physical properties of these, you'll probably like the same things about the Takstar 580. And if you like the way the Sendy Aiva sound, you'll probably like the way that these sound. So for me, these are some sort of weird Sennheiser/Sendy hybrid. That's definitely not a bad thing, especially at this price. I've seen that they've actually probably gone up towards the 180 range, but honestly, if you're looking at these for $250 and under, it's a good deal. So get them while you can. I plan on shipping this pair out to Zeus Pantera, DMS, and Metal 571, assuming they all want to review these. So expect more reviews of these if you're still not sure about them. And I know I can only do so much. I'm just a hobbyist, and they're real headphone reviewers and speaker reviewers. So I bet their weight, their review will carry a little bit more weight than mine. But these have just been my thoughts with using them as my primary for 2 weeks. If you haven't checked out my first video about the physical attributes of these, go check that out. Hopefully this review has answered some of the questions about them. Maybe it's giving you other questions. But yeah, so if you have any questions, shoot me a comment and I'll do my best to answer. I read every comment. If I don't respond, just bug me. I'll respond. So I'm really excited to see what the other reviewers have to say about them. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time.